Hello, I'm OBX Toycat, and welcome back to another podcast. This is episode 3 of the Toycat Show, an audio-only show I run on the second channel where I talk about gaming news, technology news, business news, and a little bit of YouTube news sprinkled in there. And that YouTube news comes in pretty heavily this week because we have a very controversial one, especially for creators like me. But before we get into that, let's start with the first part of the podcast, which is talking about following on from last week. So basically, last week, what I like to do is I like to read the comment section. If there's any important pertinent questions, I can get through them. And one pretty important one, I guess, was, will there be guests on the Toycat Show? And this is a pretty important question, because pretty much most podcasts have guests, and most podcasts aren't one person. So this is a very unique podcast in that format, but I don't think, going from one person to two isn't the same sort of thing as going from 3 to 4. Like, if there was a guest on this show, it would be 50% something you're not familiar with, and maybe it's worth trying out. Maybe I will do it at some point. But the second issue of having multiple people is getting that many people to all schedule at the same time. You might recall I had Get Blocked on my main channel, and I'm just about able to keep timekeeping. Sometimes I'm like 15 minutes late, but sometimes people would just be like, oh, I didn't wake up today. And it's like, wait, you didn't wake up today? And that's just not an issue I really want to deal with. You'd need to have really reliable people, and then when I'm not the reliable person one week, because, I do a lot of things that require me to be there on like Thursday, because I like to travel midweek and stuff. So as a result of that, I don't really do much collaboration stuff on the first channel or in podcasting form, because, scheduling yourself is kind of tricky. Maybe this is just me, because I didn't used to be very good at getting anything done, really, and getting anything done is quite tricky for me. But, now I can get into a solid rhythm of videos, but trying to schedule someone else and then being like, oh, I'll be there in an hour, and it's like, oh, I guess I'll do nothing for now. That's not something I can really do, and because these are friends that you usually do this sort of stuff with, do you be angry at them, and you're like, you don't want to damage your friendship over it, and the alternative to that is just find business strangers to do videos with. That doesn't sound like a good alternative either, and that is why collaboration is something I don't do so much, and why there might be a Toycat Show of a guest, but it would have to somehow happen naturally, and I really don't see that being too likely, so maybe, but probably not. Anyway, let's get straight into the first piece of news that isn't just following on from last week, and that is one of the biggest controversies YouTube has had in a while, and that is YouTube Red. So, the YouTube Red is a subscription service that allows you to not have ads on your videos for a month. So, basically, if you pay $9.99, you never have to see a month while your subscription is active. And in addition to this, there's going to be some exclusive content from PewDiePie, Rooster Teeth, as well as a few other big channels that have signed up. And basically, it's going to be quite a few extra things on top of that. It's going to be the premium version of YouTube, and it sounds a little bit interesting at first, because you're like, oh, that's kind of cool, I guess. No adverts, that's pretty good. But when you think about the creators, if you don't know, YouTubers like myself make money on the ads, it gets really, really sketchy, because the first explanation, the one that makes it kind of okay, is they say, okay, 55% of that, like with ads, if you don't know, 55% of ad revenue goes to the creator, myself, or whoever it is you're watching, and 45% goes to Google. What they do is they take 55% of that $9.99, which is $5.50, and they split that amongst every video you watch that month. And it's like, okay, that's roughly equivalent to ad revenue, right? Except it's not really that equivalent to ad revenue, because the thing is, it really depends on how many videos you watch in a month. If you watch one video, that guy gets a $5.50 payday, and that's awesome. But you're not paying $9.99 to watch one video, or even one video a day. You're probably one of these power users that's watching, let's say, 20, 30 videos a day. Doesn't, seems kind of unrealistic, but then you think, oh, I watch something like that, and I do a lot of other things that aren't just watching YouTube videos. If you're watching YouTube videos all day, I've been in that form before, and you're the sort of person that's going to pay $9.99, you're probably going to be watching, 20, 30, 40 videos a day, and that means thousands of videos in a month, and that means, less than 0.55 cents per creator. And this is kind of bad by itself, because that's just a little bit under one ad you'd usually pay, but it gets a lot worse when you consider the fact that the people who are paying for this are the people advertisers will pay extra to reach. These are the high-paying people, because, if they have disposable income to say $9.99 not to see 10-second ads, yeah, screw it. They're the people watching lots of videos, and they're also the sorts of people that, like I said, they have more disposable income, so that means they can buy stuff, and that means they're better, quality for advertisements, and that means this probably represents a net drop in, creator revenue, which, I think a lot of people are overstating it and being like, well, I guess all the YouTube money is going out the window, better start Patreon or something, and I don't think it's going to get that bad for a while, but I do think this is going to represent, on the people who have YouTube Red, maybe like a 40% drop or whatever in the money. I mean, it could go the other way. It could turn out that most people that do this only watch, like 3 or 4 videos a day, but they're, like super executive people that, just really don't want to waste 20 seconds a day on ads. But I think it will be the power users, and I think that on the power users, you will lose money. On that executive type person, you make a lot of money, because, one video a day from just one dude paying for the subscription, it's going to be a lot per creator, but we'll have to see exactly what it is. It's also worth saying it's based on watch time, so the people who make longer videos are going to be doing a lot better on this than people who don't. So, personally, I don't think I'm too much of a problem, because I think I make like 7-10 minute videos. I think that's on the slightly above average time of YouTube, but what do I know? Yeah, so I guess we'll have to see till it actually gets implemented. We have no transparency on how it's done, and it's kind of bad by itself. Like I said, I'm not concerned too much, but a lot of people really are. But the bit that really, really concerns me is the fact that they've bundled this with their Google Play Music subscriptions. So somehow, because, there's 55% that goes to creators and 45% Google get to, absorb and use to, fund their site and stuff. By the way, I'm trying to make like grabbing all the money and making a big pile, gestures with my hands, but you can't see it because it's a podcast, of course. But yeah, so this, I think, is going to be really weird, because how do you determine what the ratio of a, music play, because they get paid from that same pool as a YouTuber? How do you determine if 3 minutes of music is worth less or more than 3 minutes of video? How much more is 3 minutes of video is worth than 3 minutes of music? I don't know how they're going to do that at all. There's no transparency. We just have to trust that they're going to pay us what is right, and I think that's kind of dodgy, but I guess, so much trust is in Google already, they can just kind of do this if they want. I think the skepticism is right. I think people should be like, can you be a bit more transparent about, 1, how that whole thing works, 2, what you mean by, like, watch time? Do you mean, like, if you have 40-second videos, you just don't get anything from this? Is long videos just the way to make it? Is making those 24-hour videos, like 24 hours of Nyan Cat or whatever, is making those videos the way to make money in the new system? And I think the answer is probably going to be maybe do that. Or maybe they're going to have a weird algorithm that no one knows about, and we just get random amounts deposited. I don't know. As I said, I think I'm relatively safe on this whole thing. I think some YouTubers who are really on the edge might be pushed over the edge by this, and I think that's really, really sad. I think pushing creators over the edge is a bad thing. YouTube, it's always promised that ad revenue will be going up, but I think over the past 5 years, the opposite's always been true. It's always been going down, 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 and instead of working on that, they've made this. Maybe, they've worked on it as much as they can, or they just can't. Or maybe not. Who knows? But either way, YouTube Red is a thing. I might be trying it out when it comes to the UK, because right now it's US exclusive, just to see what is on there, because I don't know, I watch enough YouTube that maybe the ad-free thing is going to be worth it to me. If you're wondering, I don't turn ad block on for YouTube, because I think, the obviously, when, it's like how when you're a, you're a waiter or whatever, you tip more. I think it's the same thing with, like, YouTubers and streamers. Like, you kind of have to watch the ads, because the ads are kind of like, the tiniest payment that everyone's making, except you don't have to pay in money, you have to pay with, like time, like 10 seconds, and it just means that all this cool stuff can be done. It means we've created all these awesome things, and might do so in the future. But maybe that's just me being a YouTuber and just saying words, because that's that. Who might say anything? But let's move on to the second story here. I think that kind of sums up my thoughts on YouTube Red. It's not going to be a very big deal. I think some creators are going to be pushed over the edge, which is a shame. But we'll have to see. Maybe it's going to be really good for creators. Some people are, suggesting that if you only watch, if someone watches 10 videos a day, that's really great for the 10 people a day. If you watch less than 10, it's really, really great. If you watch 1 video a month, it's amazing. But we'll have to see. Maybe if there's like a way to subscribe to individual channels for slightly less, that'd be cool. We'll have to see. But let's move on to the next story, which is to do with Cubeworld. So Cubeworld is a cool little indie game that came out a couple of years ago. Yeah, I think it's 2 years and like 3 months ago now, and basically it was billed as being a game that was going to be better than Minecraft, because it's voxely like Minecraft, which is where you have pixels in the game that, but they're not, like, pixels make up pixely like blocks in the game, but basically, it was set to be like Minecraft, but so much bigger with RPG elements, with all these cool things, and basically, they launched the game in alpha, and they're like, okay, we're going to keep on improving this, and your money will support it, and the moment they released in alpha, they never released an update, never, and the guy who's in charge of it, what he did is he just disappeared. Him and his wife just disappeared, for the first 6 months. He came back and said, oh, we're going to work on the update now. Then disappeared for another year and a bit until July of 2014. Then posted a few more screenshots, then disappeared again. No updates in any of this time, but he's come back again. And, at first I was just like, okay, then, so he's going to come back again and get some hype going to sell some more copies of the game. But one thing I think is really cool is this time he has stopped selling copies on the store. There is no way to buy Cubeworld anymore, and he's going to set it so when the game comes out, the store will open and you'll be able to buy it again. And the thing about this game is it really does, even I think Mojang employee, Sarge DP, has actually commented how he's probably just doing it for the money. That's almost definitely what this is. I think you see this a lot on the internet. The internet is if you can get a lot of people behind something, you can make a lot of money on the internet. That's kind of what it is, right? Like, because it's a worldwide market or whatever. But basically, he got more money than he could probably ever comprehend. Because think about, even if he make, I think the game costs $20, I could be wrong, but it's somewhere in that region. Even if he sells, just 10,000 copies of the game, that is, I don't know why my maths is failing me right now, $200,000. That's enough for 2 very, very rich years of doing nothing. And that could have been what happened. He could have sold, 12,000, 13,000, whatever copies after tax. He's got 200,000, and he just went off to explore the world or just to do nothing and enjoy life for a bit. But the thing is, I think that's kind of damaging. I think I think it's the worst type of person to do that, because especially if you make that much money with the promise of making a product, it's like, making a Kickstarter, getting the money and being like, wait a minute, I don't need to make a product, I've got money, which I think is what a lot of people do. I think, there's a real problem with the internet and funding people up front for this sort of thing, because everyone gets excited for stuff and everyone will give you money, and then this happens. So it looks like he is coming back this time. If I give a quick scroll for his Twitter feed, he's been posting every single day for more than 10 days now. 10 days? 11 days? Yeah, he's been posting for 12 days in a row now, which compared to his previous runs of just like 4 tweets, it's pretty big, and it seems as though this time there might be an update to Cubeworld. I think the internet's just over Cubeworld though. Like, if an update comes out for it, it'd have to be so big to be, kind of worthwhile. And the sort of guy who leaves for 2 years because he has enough money is also the sort of guy that probably isn't going to make a big enough update, just because, at the moment he's probably doing this for more money. I'd love to not be cynical, but if you abandon something for 2 years, coming back to it is probably just to get more of the thing you abandoned it for. That's probably the whole thing there. Like, I'd love to start businesses that I abandoned when I was, 12 again, but I wouldn't want to do it for integrity purposes, because everyone's forgotten about it by then. You're not doing anything for integrity at that point. You're always going to be doing it for the money. And maybe it's not so bad that he wants to develop the game for money. Maybe, if we can get enough hype around this, then he'll keep on updating it, because he'll realize that you need money in the long term, not the short term. Or maybe he literally just had some weird life condition that stopped him from working for a year. I highly doubt it's that, because he would have posted something rather than just sporadically appearing and disappearing. But we'll have to see as this goes on. I think it's going to be a really cool thing to follow. It's not really been reported by a lot of news, and that's why I like to cover stuff like that here. But yeah, Cubeworld, it's been 2 years, but maybe we'll still see an update. The game has so much potential, and there's so much fun to have with it, even as it is right now. I'm just, I'm hoping that the game actually does go somewhere. Apparently, he's working on a lot of cool things. There's going to be bosses, there's going to be boats, there's going to be, like new types of dungeons. He's even shown off a new boss theme that he's made for the game. I think it's intriguing, but I'm just so skeptical. And that's gonna be a fun one to follow. Will I be right? Will he follow through with one update, then leave again, or will he actually get back to the game? Time will tell, but that's Cubeworld right there. So let's move on to the third story here, which comes in from Activision, talking about their new esports division. So Activision Blizzard, which, if you don't know, Activision merged with Blizzard several years ago. Blizzard, the company behind World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, etc. Activision, the company behind Call of Duty, Guitar Hero, back then Tony Hawk's, but not so much anymore. And basically, yeah, that's Activision right there. So Activision Blizzard are trying to make an esports division to really push the Activision esports ecosystem, and I think this is a really cool thing. Not because I think Activision esports are that interesting to watch. I mean, their biggest one is Call of Duty, and I think the games right now aren't interesting to watch. I think they're competitive to play, but I don't think they're interesting to watch. But I do think the idea of them getting behind, their esports and making, basically trying to push the esports and make the esports better is a good thing. This is because, really, I think this is mostly Call of Duty, right? And, Hearthstone and I guess, their new MOBA from Blizzard and stuff like that. But I think trying to make games more interesting esports is a good thing. Right now, I imagine most of you don't watch esports. I don't watch esports, but I've watched several games, and sometimes I really enjoy them. What makes me enjoy esports is when you get the really wacky moments. Basically, you want to encourage wacky moments versus each other, and it's weird to kind of make that happen on a regular basis. But let's give some examples. So on League of Legends, a lot of games just have the same kind of pattern where it's like, oh, two teams go into the thing, someone gets a kill, and momentum just leads them into the game. They win in half an hour. It's kind of cool to watch because when there's big teams, they can actually push that, who's winning back and forth. But it's still kind of boring, even as someone who knows all the rules and mechanics. It's just you need to be really into the game to like it. And I think Call of Duty could have been a good alternative to that because understanding a first-person shooter is really easy. They have the gun, they're trying to shoot the other people, but I think the way that the game is played right now is something that even if you play the game, it's not that entertaining. You have to be really into the pro scene just to like the pro scene, and that's a bad thing because the thing that makes a game fun to watch, in my opinion, is when you can understand what's happening, you can understand the skill that's going into it, and also see some variety, see some tips you haven't learned before. So let's give some I've watched a lot of Call of Duty, and I haven't really enjoyed most of it, but one thing I really did like is it might have been back in Modern Warfare 3. Basically, there was I think it was one particular map in the game where one of the best options to use was a thermal sniper because it was such a dark map, and it meant that one of the people on each team would be running this sniper, and he would always be the most interesting guy to watch because everyone else is running the exact same gun, and you're kind of watching nothing happen. Like, you're watching people shoot the first 3 bullets and kill, and that's skill. But if they all have the same level of skill, it's not interesting. It's kind of like if you think about how some high level sports are getting to the point where let's think about goalkeepers. Like, goalkeeping skill isn't a good thing. Like, every goalkeeper in any major team in football, I'm talking about the UK, the soccer, if you will. I don't know what the correct name for it is, but yeah, soccer, football. The goalkeepers, most of them keep most balls out. Like, if it being like, oh, I saved the ball isn't like a good thing. It's like, yeah, that's what you do 99.5% of the time, or whatever. And I think that leads to uninteresting modes. I think what there needs to be really cool possibilities of play that are competitive. I think, if everyone's using a slightly different gun and some people using their advantage, that's awesome. I think when people have the sniper in their back pocket and they pull it out and they do something awesome, that's really cool. And I think the possibility to be different should always be there. That should, having one player on the team be the long range guy that can, do these really cool things, that's pretty awesome. But you gotta have something to mix it up. The way I believe it plays most of the time is people playing, there's all these customization options the game gives you to make the game interesting, but then the competitive way is to use one of them, and the game kind of encourages that. It always makes a dominant weapon of feature variety, and I think that's something they should kind of mix up. So I think the best way to make an esport enjoyable to watch is to make some variety. Make it so you can kind of learn a little bit about, high-end play, but also make it so you can learn about some of the really cool things in the game from the esports. So you'll be like, I'm going to do that myself, and, it's kind of like, what makes a YouTube successful. I think that needs to be done to esports. But maybe that's just me, because of course I do the YouTube thing. So I think that just about summarizes my thoughts on this whole esports thing. I think pushing esports as a big thing would be awesome. I really can't watch regular sports, to be honest. Like, I mentioned football, but I just haven't watched it in so long. It just isn't very interesting to me. Like, especially when you see, I think the really interesting sports are the ones like ice hockey and maybe basketball. I haven't watched basketball, but the ones where there's scoring happening crazy and there's injuries and there's all this crazy stuff. I think you need to have, a game which has a lot of chance for variety for it to be interesting to watch. But maybe that's just my type of favorite sport. Like, I've noticed, my favorite sport is one that isn't very popular. Maybe what it is, people like the kind of more boring sports. Maybe the push into making these games like that is to kind of get the soccer audience. Because, soccer, if you try to explain soccer to anyone, I'm just going to keep calling it that. I'm sorry, people from Europe or anywhere in the world that calls it its real name. But yeah, the thing about soccer is, on average, I think the average goals per game must be like 1.2 or something. A lot of games go 1-0, 1-1, or 2-1. Like, many games just end with very, very few scores. But yeah, people really enjoy the game anyway, because there's just not much to really pay attention to. It's just like, the ball's over there, that's kind of good for this team. The ball's really close that way, oh, that's really good. And then it didn't go anywhere. And maybe just having a really predictable game is good. I don't even know. But I would personally think that a good way to make an esports is just to make an interesting one. And getting esports out there is a good thing, because there's an esports bar in the UK. There's like one in like 5 European cities, and it's a really, really cool thing to go to an esports bar. Like, I can watch esports, but like, yeah, go this guy, and I'd love to see that be a thing that's more wild. Like, I'd love to see a regular bar that do like an esports night. But yeah, that's just me personally. I'm sure I'd love to hear from all of you in the comments down below, and I can of course follow on from any that should be responded to in podcast form. Thank you all for watching episode 3 of the Top Toy Cat Show. I'm slowly running out of ability to speak today, apparently. I hope you did all like the podcast. As always, share, like, whatever the podcast. It's always a good thing. Thank you all for watching, though. I think that's just about everything I have to say as far as, video game newsy stuff and whatnot. And I will just quickly say, I think doing this podcast like 2 or 3 times a week is pretty good. Maybe it should go back to weekly. Maybe it wasn't ever weekly. But maybe it should be a weekly thing. Maybe I like this and I turn something else. I don't know. I will say, though, that talking to myself is something... It's surprising, as much as I can just talk on and on. I think it might be better to have someone to bounce off, and that's my thoughts at the end here. But that's just my current thought. I change my opinion a lot on everything, and that's a good thing. I think changing your opinion is good on everything, really. Change every opinion you have. Look at every opinion and be like, what do I think about murder? Murder's not good. Let's consider this. So yeah, I picked the worst example possible just so you can ignore my point if you want to. Thank you all for watching the Toy Cat Show, and I'll see you all in the next one. And also, I'll be doing a little bit more Hearthstone stuff on this channel, because there's they nerfed a card recently, and I want to do a why it sucks on it. But yeah, that's that. Anyway, see you all in another one. Bye.